Well, good morning and welcome to Elevenses. I'm sorry I'm a few minutes late. Once again, technical gremlins. I set the damn show up and then something goes horribly wrong. Anyway, here I am, and we have a packed show once again for you. Stories include an Ayrshire dealer which has just shut its doors. East London Council has seized 21 illegal bikes. E-bike and e-scooter fires are on the rise in London, and that's possibly got something to do with the introduction of a bill which would ban the import of illegal e-bikes and conversion kits. We'll take a look at some world and UK news in brief, and then we'll turn to motorcycles generally. BMW have sold more than 200,000 motorcycles for the fourth consecutive year. We'll have a look at another motorcycle navigation system, which comes with alerts. We've seen that before somewhere. We'll have a look at the three-wheel XYTE One. I think that's how you pronounce XYTE. And as a contrast, Kawasaki's Stockman farm bike, which you find down under, but not in the UK, but it looks to be perfect for UK roads. And then we'll have a look at the Brixton Crossfire 500 Storr. And finally, we'll finish up with some riding tips. Today, we'll be looking at the balance between caution and decisiveness and how it's important to get the balance of that right. Okay, so that's what's coming up over the next few minutes. Don't forget, of course, that we have some stories from, I'm just trying to get the picture up, which I had all set up ready to go, but it's just fallen out of the planner. There it is. That's the picture I wanted, and that's the balance of image I wanted. Now, this is if you've been wondering why pothole repairs fail so quickly, this might have something to do with it, because this particular picture popped up on LinkedIn. Now let me zoom in on that so you can see it clearly. If you look, you can see that there's a hole in the road that's been filled in with a different kind of sort of asphalt, and at the bottom of the hole, partly covered by water, is what appears to be a plastic bag. Now, I'm no road engineer, but I'm pretty sure this is not how you are supposed to mend potholes. This is actually a genuine photo. It's not AI. It was taken in Hina on the 23rd of January, and it gives you an idea as to why potholes keep opening up. Now, I suspect this comment is correct. Somebody suggested that the installers actually left the empty bags in the pothole simply to get rid of them as they worked, rather than trying to dispose of them properly. I personally actually think they probably put them in there to sort of cover up the bigger chunks of stone, and then just lay the tarmac on top of it. Anyway, whatever. The comment goes on to say cold patch material adheres far better when it makes direct contact with the underlying surface of the pothole, even when water is present. Leaving a plastic bag in the hole undermines the repair, as material placed on top of the plastic will dislodge easily. This reflects poor installation practice and a lack of attention to proper material handling and bag disposal. Now, apparently, if installed properly, which involves installing the material into a pre-prepared pothole, something I was watching some people doing down our road, or rather not doing down our road. They just tipped the tarmac in and sort of tamped it down. It could last up to 24 months. Just one problem. I did a bit of digging, and you'll see what I did there. I searched online for that repair kit, and here it is. This is the same one. It's the Cold Lay Macadam. I found it at the home hardware store, The Range, £8 for a 25 kilogram bag, which the blurb says is ideal for patching and repairing paths and driveways. Clearly, that's not a road where heavy traffic runs over it. So if this is really the material that's being widely used to patch roads, no wonder potholes are reappearing after a month or two. Now, moving on, I've got another graphic to show you, so I'll just leave the picture as it is at the moment and shuffle on one picture. There we go. Now, this is the number of times that people have to take the theory test and the practical car test. And if you look at the screen there, you'll see that there were more than 31,000 attempts. People took more than 10 times to pass the theory test, and there were 14,000 plus who took more than 10 attempts to get through the practical test. And predictably, the numbers declined, but rather alarmingly, 93 people took more than 50 attempts to pass the theory test. At least there were no people who took 50 goes to pass the practical test. Now, there were lots of comments about this graph when it appeared the other day on one of my bike forums, and people were saying, you know, if people actually need so many attempts to pass a test, should they be allowed on the road at all? Which is a fair question. Another comment, though, was it showed how awful driver training was, or how awful the standards are that these people actually get out on the road eventually. And of course, the inevitable response being on a motorcycle site was no wonder so many motorcyclists are killed by poor driving each year, which of course, as we should know now, is a myth. Anyway, time for a few seconds of research. And the figures that we want to know are how representative are these numbers of the people who actually take the test as a whole. And the answer are, of course, as I'm sure you've already guessed, is that they are in fact a tiny proportion of the total. So according to the UK government and DVSA statistics, there were around 1.93 million car practical driving tests conducted in 2024. So that list we've just seen, it is 10 or more tests, but if you add it up, it comes to 14,527. That's 0.75% of the total. Or in other words, 99.25 drivers managed to pass their test in fewer than 10 attempts. And explained that way, of course, it doesn't sound quite so bad. The vast majority of people will take 1, 2, maybe 3 tests to pass. That was my experience as a bike trainer. There's always the odd outlier, but these really are the outliers. And explained that way, it doesn't sound nearly so bad, does it? So it's always useful to do some maths before you actually get horror struck by figures like this. And very briefly, another number here. You may recall last week that my in-depth piece at the end of the show was a look at why it might be that the perennial L-plate system is defended so heavily by learners. Now, this was a response to a story I wrote reporting on the consultation that is going ahead that could result in possible changes to the motorcycle test. It's not happening for guaranteed, but it is a consultation process. But I wasn't entirely surprised at the negative responses on my page. I was surprised by just how many were negative about it. But it seems that Motorcycle News carried out a poll, and they found that 48% of motorcyclists who responded were against change. Right. Anyway, moving on to the next topic, which is the weather forecast. Last night, the newsfeed warned me, snow maps reveal exact date. Beast from the east storm will bury 90% of the UK. And now this warning actually comes from wxcharts.com. They said London was going to get inches and inches of snow, or centimetres and centimetres, I suppose. They've got a reputation for publishing the most extreme of the various weather models as the forecast. There's a difference. Describing the weather for the end of the week as further spells of rain, the Met Office suggests that as these bands of rain spread northward, some snow will be possible in high ground in northern England and Scotland, which is pretty much par for the time of year. Anyway, a bit more detail. Today, mainly cloudy, patchy rain almost anywhere, though Wales and Northern Ireland will see heavier outbreaks, and that band of rain, that patch of rain, will move east during the evening. It'll turn drier and brighter in Northern Ireland and the southwest later in the day. High ground could see some snow. Winds are from the southeast and they are chilly. Monday should be brighter and drier across much of England and Wales, particularly in the south, but rain will fall as snow on high ground across northern and western Scotland. Cloud will push back in across much of the UK during the day, though. It will remain cool and it will get wet in the far southwest by the evening. Now, Tuesday sees a battle between warmer weather trying to move in from the far south, which will bring rain across much of the south of England by evening. But further north, the cold air will stay in place and it will stay cold. It will also be breezy from the east and cloudy, and there will be some rain, even possibly some snow across Scotland. Now, it will be cloudy for most of Wednesday. Rain in the south will clear, sleet and snow likely to remain across northern Scotland. Thursday looks largely cloudy, sleet and snow in the far north again, clearing northwards. Some brighter spells for the south. Now, by Friday and the weekend, the forecast is much less certain, but it does look like there will be a change in wind direction that could bring a drop in temperatures across the UK, but no walls of snow. Nick's looked in. Good morning, Nick. Nice to see you too. Right, okay, so on with some news. First story I have is, unfortunately, another motorcycle dealer has gone under, and this time it's in Ayrshire, and I've lost my picture. Where's it gone? Right, just a moment. There we go. Sorry about that. Don't know why that went. So yes, North Harbour Motorcycles, they've announced they've closed down, and then the owner took to social media to urge bikers to support local businesses. And they said, very often we'll have folks come in, have a look round, compare prices online with larger companies with fewer overheads than your locals, and presumably meaning that they then go off to buy the bike online and have it delivered to their home. And they went on to ask buyers to make an effort to shop local, and frankly, that applies to anywhere really. Some people buy bikes, of course, and then they end up having them seized. Now, this is an East London council, and they have had a crackdown. They've seized 21 illegal, they say e-bikes and mopeds. I'm pretty sure I can see exhaust on one or two of those bikes. But they say it's part of a high street crackdown. It's Waltham Forest Council, and their officers, along with the Met Police, they took action following reports of antisocial behaviour and illegal parking near Walthamstow High Street. Now, in total, they seized 13 e-bikes and 8 mopeds over the weekend of January the 17th and 18th, and officers issued 17 penalty charge notices and reported 19 traffic offences. Now, the owner has to pay their fine within 42 days, and if they don't, the bike could either be scrapped or auctioned off. And I think, as you can see from the large boxes on the back of these bikes, a significant number of them were delivery riders. Now, sometimes riders do, or drivers motorcycles, they do wonder why these bikes are targeted. Why is this not moving around when I want it to? But data that's been collated by the London Fire Brigade shows that there were a record 206 e-bike and e-scooter files recorded in the capital in 2025. Now, compared with the total number in operation, that probably isn't very many. I don't have a figure for that because I couldn't find it. But 2 people did die last year, and that takes the number of fatalities linked to e-bikes and e-scooters to 5 since 2023. The Fire Brigade said that the fires that they attended were largely the result of faulty or poorly built vehicles, and they said they're often bought second hand or bought online. And they said the accidents are mostly down to the lithium-ion battery, but there's not a surprise there really, because there's not much else that's combustible, is there? And they mentioned that it's conversion kits and chargers that are failing. And that brings me directly to my next story. The Labour MP Julie Minns has introduced a 10-minute bill proposing a ban on the sale, marketing and supply of illegal high-powered e-bikes and conversion kits. And the rules at the moment distinguish between the legal pedelec, as they're sometimes known, which are limited to 250 watts and 15.5 miles per hour. If you want to go faster than that, the engine cuts out and you have to pedal. And she described these as a force for good, but that the monster e-bikes behave more like unregulated motorcycles, which is exactly what they are. And anyway, her bill targets the online marketplaces and overseas sellers. Now, the aim is to prevent these dangerous machines from reaching the streets in the first place, and that will give the police and trading standards powers to seize and destroy non-compliant bikes at the point of sale, create clear offences for retailers, and shut down the supply of conversion kits which are being used to create illegal machines. Frankly, I say these are the steps that should have been carried out years ago. At the moment, you know, these things get onto the streets and then it's the end user who pays the price. I'd say people being exploited by the people who bring them in and sell them. Min's also cited that these illegal e-bikes often linked to criminal activity and argued that you can't sell flick knives or unsafe fireworks because they pose a clear risk, and that if things are sensibly regulated, the bikes that fall outside those regulations simply shouldn't be sold. So that bill will get a second reading next month. Right, okay, let me try and run the video and see if that... Always, can I ask you to take a moment to like and subscribe to this show if you've not already done so? Every click helps other motorcyclists discover my content, or simply share the word the old-fashioned way by telling your riding buddies about Elevenses. They can watch on catch-up. Remember, my latest riding skills articles are always free, and you can get all the links delivered weekly to your email inbox by subscribing to my newsletter at survivalskills.substack.com. Or you can use this QR code to jump straight to it, when the show's over of course. No spam, and if you don't like the content, unsubscribe at any time. Right, okay, that worked anyway. So some news from around the world in brief. Now, I've just mentioned the bill in the UK regulating e-bikes. New Jersey in the US has already taken the step of imposing some new legislation. Now, they've taken a quite substantial swipe at illegal e-bikes, because all classifications of e-bike ridden in New Jersey will require the rider to get a license, get insurance, and register the vehicle just as you would a car or an ordinary motorcycle. Riders must be age 15 or over, and they must hold a motorized bicycle license or be 17 or over and with a valid driver permit. Now, the state has also banned these conversion kits, which allow for low-powered e-bikes to be converted up to higher power. And for the next year, it has also banned the sale of electric bikes which can exceed 28 miles per hour, so considerably quicker than the ones that we allow over here. Now, predictably, e-bike enthusiasts are saying that the new rules will seriously impact riders in the state, and they claim that the rules undermine public goals like reducing traffic, lowering emissions, and improving access to affordable mobility by discouraging adoption. I'd say those arguments are disingenuous. Illinois and California, they are also now looking to tighten the laws on e-bikes, e-step scooters, plus the oddballs like e-unicycles and e-skateboards, which actually sidestep the rules completely. They're not covered by the existing rules. Meanwhile, head to Melbourne, and a local journalist there has said that motorcycles could play a meaningful role in easing urban congestions, since motorcycles can filter through traffic and move people far more easily. Who'd have thought? Now, this is Justin Smith, but he also makes the point that ever larger cars have made congestion worse. Now, he's not blind to the downsides. He does acknowledge riding is riskier. There is weather exposure issues, and poor riding behavior does contribute to crashes. But the article calls for better training, better enforcement, better infrastructure, and a shift in road culture. And, you know, the issue here is a universal one. In crowded cities, moving more people in smaller vehicles simply makes sense, even if politicians remain reluctant to actually ask users to fall out of love with their cars. But come back to the UK, we have a problem using motorcycles for commuting, and that is the steadily increasing cost of insurance. Now, MAG pointed out that the Labour Party manifesto promised to tackle the soaring cost of motor insurance. And indeed, almost one of the first thing they did was they launched the Motor Insurance Task Force. That was back in October 2024. But the remit failed to mention motorcycles. Now, MAG picked this up, asked the DFT a direct question, are motorcycles included? The answer was received that month and was categorical. Yes, motorcycle insurance is within the remit of the task force. So guess what? Well, the final report was published on 10th of December, just before Parliament went into their Christmas recess. And says Colin Brown, their engagement officer, the 34-page document that took 14 months to assemble fails to mention motorcycles even once. He's not very happy about it. And if you want to see his video on YouTube, I'll put the link up to it here, and you can go and watch it when you're ready. Right, okay. Often wonder about people using motorcycles illegally. Officers from Durham's Armed and Roads team spotted a BMW F900 XR motorcycle being ridden on the pavement in Peterlee on Sunday. And after being signalled to stop, perhaps it's predictable that the 19-year-old rider made off, as they say. But unfortunately for him, he crashed at the roundabout very shortly afterwards. He attempted to take off on foot, but he was tracked down, he was arrested, and he was found to have been in possession of suspected Class A drugs. So you don't have to ask yourself, why on earth would you be riding the bike on the pavement and drawing attention to yourself? Now, it's rather an alarming story. Probably heard quite a lot about the news from Iran, but human rights groups report that Diana Bahadur, a 19-year-old Iranian motorcyclist and social media influencer known online as Baby Biker, was shot dead by Iranian security forces during protests in the city of Gorgan earlier this month. Bahadur, who had gained a large following for videos that included riding without a headscarf, was reportedly killed during clashes with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. Now, her body was returned to her family 2 days later, according to those rights organizations. The Iranian state media disputed the account. They claimed that she had died in a road traffic collision. Activists allege her family was pressured to repeat that version publicly, including putting up posts on her social media accounts as a condition for recovering her body. Right, okay, quick break for a sip. If you enjoy these shows, why not become a member of my Ko-fi pages? Just follow the QR code and sign up. As a member, you get free access to the latest articles and the Survival Schools ebook shop with instant downloads of everything from free mini ebooks to ebook versions of my paperbacks. Become a one-off supporter and you'll open up the archive of over 1,000 articles. If you buy me a monthly cuppa as a subscriber, there's even more content to enjoy. Right, okay, so on some bike news then. BMW, to start with, they reveal that the European market was responsible for more than 50% of their overall sales, and they totaled 202,563. Now, it's the fourth consecutive year that BMW's achieved over 200,000 motorcycle sales worldwide, but their sales did fall in the UK, which is no great surprise. They remain Germany's best performing motorcycle, and they sold 25,500 in Germany. Now, talked a lot about sort of AI powered gadgetry for motorcycles, and the latest is from a European startup called Luna Systems, and they have raised 1.5 million euro to work on their system, which is designed for both bikes and motorcycles, bicycles I should say. The Dublin based company is adapting advanced rider assistance systems, which basically function in the same way to automotive advanced driver assistance systems, to two-wheeled vehicles. Now they're going to give you features like collision warnings, blind spot detection, proximity alerts, and this will initially involve installing a rear-facing AI camera and an app, and later on it will be a dual camera system and integrated into an existing motorcycle. So this is an example of the kind of technology I was talking about very recently on ELEVENSES, that more and more ICE bikes will be kind of refreshed with these enhanced tech and safety systems, not just to help riders feel safer on the road, obviously, but they also help keep aging platforms seemingly relevant. And here's another example of this kind of thing. This is a new navigation system. Let me give you a bit of a zoom in on that so you can see a little bit more. It's coming to Android Auto. It's based on Spark OS, whatever that is. Anyway, the headline told me that what it was going to do was deliver predictive be aware alerts. Why? Well, quote, naturally, motorcyclists expose themselves to a lot more risks than car drivers. So the new software's new functionality is designed to help riders make more informed travel decisions to mitigate risks that might appear based on the specific routes that riders take. For example, if the system detects possible slippery roads based on current conditions, it will notify you with a "Be aware, slippery road possible" alert, which will enable you to anticipate the reduced grip so you can adjust your riding accordingly. Or you might get an alert in regard of winds. You can get a "Be aware, strong crosswinds expected" alert, where you might be hit by sudden side winds. This way it says you can be prepared and adjust your balance and lane positioning. And finally, rest assured the system is not made to spam you with alerts. The alerts are context aware, non-intrusive, and only shown where relevant. Do you know what? I think I'd rather look at the road. Anyway, let's have a look at the next item. Now, a recurring theme in urban mobility is the attempt to create vehicles that sit between motorcycles and cars. And this is the XYTE One, XYTE, I presume that's how you pronounce it. It's the latest example I've seen. It's a three-wheeled enclosed electric scooter with a protective cell. And it's said to combine scooterability with the safety, the stability, the convenience, and the weather shielding of a microcar. Now, in some European jurisdictions, it can be driven without a helmet, ridden, in theory, attracting drivers who would never consider a conventional motorcycle. Now, it gets a top speed of 62 miles per hour. It says a real-world range in excess of 60 miles. And compact footprint parking and maneuvering. Although I'm not sure whether you would be able to park this in a motorcycle, but I'm guessing you probably can in most jurisdictions. Now, the basic concept, of course, is far from new, because if you recall, back in the early 2000s, BMW brought out something very similar to this. It was a roofed C1 scooter. Okay, true, it only had two wheels, but the concept is almost identical. And of course, it's just a match with a number of existing three-wheeled leaning motorcycles, Piaggio and Yamaha, you may be aware of. Renault's Twizy microcar, that had four wheels, but if I remember correctly, it has four moped performance. A couple of others I recall, Microlino, Carver, they've all sort of circled this same territory. And this makes the obvious question pop up. If this category of vehicle makes so much sense, where are they? Where are the sales? Now, none of the the motorcycles and scooters and sort of micro cars I've just mentioned has broken into the mainstream. They were mostly expensive. They're mostly compromised culturally by buying neither a car nor a motorcycle, and of course they bring added complexity to the deal, really. So, the XYTE One here, it might tick the electric box, but I think the challenge of moving from niche appeal to volume sales is still unresolved. Now, at the opposite end of the spectrum, from this sort of enclosed micro-mobility solution sits Kawasaki's Stockman. Now, this is a purpose-built farm bike that prioritizes durability and utility over styling, that's for sure. Now, let's have a quick look at this. I'll give you a go and zoom in view. A little bit dull that photo. I usually brighten these up a bit, but hopefully you can see it. It's a 233cc air-cooled single. It produces around 19 horsepower. It's got a 6-speed gearbox with a crawler gear. It's got front and rear racks. It has lever guards. It has dual side stands. I've never seen that on anything before. And it has a wet weight of roughly 137 kilograms, so it's hardly heavy. It's designed for low-speed work, constant mounting and dismounting, and of course for surviving mud, dust, and also neglect as well. So this isn't a dual sport in the sort of recreational sense. It's a working tool. It's closer in spirit, really, I suppose, to a quad bike on 2 wheels. And it's part of a long lineage of these machines, which have sold well down in Australia and New Zealand. And that raises, I think, an interesting question for the UK, because is there a market for this kind of motorcycle here? Now, as the UK roads increasingly resemble farm tracks, broken surfaces, potholes, and rough rural lanes, the idea of a simple, robust, easy to repair motorcycle does have a certain appeal. Now, you might say that, on the one hand, that the reason these bikes are bought in Australia and New Zealand is they are business equipment. But, in the UK doesn't mean that there's no market. One reason to think that, of course, is the success of other small, simple bikes in this sort of low capacity segment. Honda's retro style GB350S was, at least to me anyway, a very surprise sales success in the UK, and that machine is priced at around £4,000. Royal Enfield's 350cc family continues to sell strongly. The classic 350s around 4,500 at the moment. The new BSA Bantam 350, that appeared at just £3,499 and promptly sold out. And then there are the more expensive rivals like the Triumph 400 range, which starts at around £5,000. We've just had 2 new bikes added to the range. So, if there is a possibility that the bike may suffer from a sort of an identity crisis. Is it a commuter? Is it a utility vehicle? Is it a rural workhorse? I don't know. I honestly think that the bike, like the Stockman, might just appeal. That's a sort of an alternative mobility idea. At the moment in Australia, the Stockman retails for around 7,200 to 7,999 Australian dollars, depending on dealer and extras. It's much the same kind of price in New Zealand dollars. That's less than £4,000 at current exchange rates. It might cost a little bit more to ship it from Japan to the UK, but I think the concept makes some kind of sense. Now, if you want something a little bit more upmarket and a little bit more sort of Dakar look, here's the Brixton Crossfire 500 Storr, S-T-O-R-R. Now, this is described as a rugged new middleweight adventure machine, and it comes from Brixton, who are an Austrian sort of Chinese brand. Now, it gets a 486cc liquid cooled parallel twin engine, so a bit of a upgrade to that Stockman we've just seen. A2 license friendly, 47 horsepower at 8,500 RPM and 43 Newton meters at 6,750. 17-inch spoked rear wheel gets driven by a 6-speed gearbox, and up front is a 19-inch wheel, which again would hopefully ride over potholes reasonably well. Both are fitted with block pattern tyres. No word on the ground clearance, but it is a pretty tall machine. It's 839 millimeters. I forgot to convert that to inches, but I think it's something around about 32 inches. Anyway, it gets a 16-litre tank. Curb weight is a reasonable 209 kilograms, and you get LED lighting, a vertical TFT display, likely, of course, with smartphone connectivity, USB charging, switchable rear ABS, traction control, plus tool screen, handguard, and a luggage rack for securing your items. Now, the bike is expected to launch in Europe and India, as well as other select markets in early 2026. The company's Find a Dealer page does cover the UK, suggesting it will be offered here. Price is not finalised, but it is suspected that it'll be around €6,400, which is about £5,500 at current exchange rates. So a little bit pricier, but not too expensive. Right, okay, so time to move on to the final part today. It's the in-depth item. On Sundays, I try to look at something either technical, background interest, or practical to improve your riding. And so today's topic is caution or decisiveness, getting the balance right. Now, this is, one of the trickier balances actually in motorcycles. It's not all about staying upright. If we get this question of whether we're being cautious or whether we're being decisive wrong, we can actually end up, getting ourselves into the trouble we were trying to avoid. Now, I think most riders will recognize the obvious trap, charging through junctions with a sort of a my right of way mindset. Let me just change the screen there. Legally that's correct. If you have the main road, you have the not right of way, because there's no such thing, but you do have the other driver should give way to you, but it does rely on them doing just that. Now, many riders who ride like this can be technically competent. I've trained plenty myself, but they are utterly shocked when someone doesn't cede passage to them and pulls out. So I'm pretty sure people are familiar with that particular end of the spectrum, but there's a quieter, less discussed one at the other end, over caution. Now, I've seen this repeatedly at both basic and post-test level. Here's a sort of example of what happens. A rider spots a junction, maybe a roundabout, but anyway, somewhere where they have the right of passage and the other driver should let them through, but they slow down. And they slow down more than the situation really warrants. Not enough to stop, but enough to introduce doubt in the other road user's mind. Now, this is infectious. I have a friend who drives like this, and they create a situation like this on almost every drive, so much so that just in case the driver pulls out, they slow down and they create the impression in the other driver looking at them, oh, are they letting me go? And so they start to move out. My friend keeps going until they can't anymore. And suddenly nobody's sure who's doing what. In extreme cases here, horns get sounded, fists get waved, and even abuse gets shouted. And when it's all sorted out, my friend gets annoyed. I was just being careful. I usually manage to bite my tongue, but my response to this is, no, you weren't. You were being over cautious. So the result of being over cautious isn't actually the safety that we're trying to generate. What we are causing is confusion. And confusion is a fertile breeding ground for crashes. If it's two cars bumping into each other, it might be a bit of bent bodywork, but if it's a car and a motorcycle, the rider comes off badly. So why is this? Well, simple enough. Our positioning, our line, and our speed, they're all signals that other road users interpret. We do it ourselves when we're looking at other road users. Whether we intend those positioning, slowing down, whatever, to be signals, that's how others will interpret it. So if we slow excessively, we're sending one message that maybe we're giving way, but when we're keeping going, we're sending another. We're coming through. It's mixed messages. We're saying I may be stopping or I may be coming through at one and the same time. So other road users are left guessing. And here's the truth, and this is the uncomfortable bit. They're not guessing with our survival as their top priority. They're guessing as their convenience of what they are going to do. Now, I recall a student years ago who needed 5 attempts to pass his test. He actually found a different way to fail each time, and he got angry with the examiner. He got angry with me each time, but there were 2 of the back-to-back attempts which stick in my mind. Now, on the first of this pair of tests, he was being overconfident. He sort of basically breezed past a junction where a driver nearly pulled out into him. He retook his test. In those days, you could do it just a few days later. He took it in the same town with the same examiner, and he went round much the same route. And this time he failed for excessive caution. And if you've stayed with me this far, you probably guess why. Now, he was annoyed at the too fast fail. The driver should wait for me, he said. Absolutely livid, though, about the second too cautious result. He was convinced that the examiner had it in for him by this point, and also that I was giving him poor advice. Now, what he couldn't see was that both faults came from the same misunderstanding, that the correct approach would be one of these 2 extremes: either rely entirely on the driver to wait, or don't take any chances at all. It took a while, but eventually he grasped the idea of what I've kind of come to call wary decisiveness. Wary means we see a risk, we plan for it, and we leave ourselves options. We retain the ability to brake and swerve if things do start to go wrong. But decisive means that once we commit ourselves, we commit early and we commit clearly, with a speed and line that make our intentions obvious to that driver who's looking to us to find out what we were going to do. Now, yes, it is a tricky balance, but good riding isn't always easy. So, remember this: if the other road user can't work out what we're doing, we have already created a threat, a hazard to ourselves, but also to everybody else around us who's trying to maneuver as well. Right, okay, that's it for today. So don't forget, if you have found the in-depth section useful, there is a way to continue learning even when you have finished watching today, and that's to have a look at my online training. Now, I have just finished putting together a dedicated website for my online coaching, and I'm just going to put the I forgot to do this earlier, I should have done it. Put the link in the comments. There it is. That'll go up. There it is. motoonline.co.uk. So it's all one word, Moto Online. You can find information there about my 8-week e-course and also my 1-hour online coaching sessions. Now, the e-course, it consists of 8 sections. They're delivered online. You can work through the sections at your own pace. Each section consists of something like 8 to 10 modules, and these deliver a mix of theory, questions to get you thinking, some cunningly designed practical exercises for you to try out on the road. There's plenty of interaction. There are resources to download. There are videos to watch. You can use each section comes with the ability to respond. You can ask your own questions. You can upload your own photos. You can even upload on-bike video if you want to. Each course includes 2 online webinar style meetings where we can discuss how you're getting on and what you want to get from the rest of the course, and get to the end. There's an informative 9th week for free. The online 1-hour sessions, now they are rather different. They allow you to set the agenda and ask for a specific one-on-one session to talk about anything you like, any particular issue. I know e-learning's not everyone's cup of tea, but if you're open-minded about how you learn and you enjoy having your thinking challenged, I believe you will be surprised at just how effective these online coaching courses can be. A couple of the 8-week courses back, Ian said, "I'd just like to say how much I'm appreciating and enjoying this course. It's really making me think about my riding. The amount of time and effort you've put in is incredible. Thank you so much. It really is very, very good." Nick said, "I second that." Now, the Survival Skills 8-week e-course is on offer right now. It's set at just £79, £10 a week. That's less than a tank of fuel. Probably less than your breakfast on your Sunday morning ride out too. The 1-hour session is £40. You'll get 60 minutes minimum of contact time plus personalized guidance, which I will sort of compile after the event. So just set me the puzzle. I'll do my best to solve it for you. Anything theoretical, practical, you ask, I will do my best to answer. So that's it for today. Thanks to everybody who has looked in either live or will be looking in on catch up. I noticed that Nick has just said definitely recommend Kevin's training course. Thank you, Nick. Very kind of you to say so. So you've been watching me, Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training. This has been Elevenses. Make a date to join me for the next show with another roundup of news, views and biking tips next Sunday. If you are out there enjoying a ride on your bike today, and it's just brightening up here as some weak sunshine come out, do make sure you stay shiny side up, and then I will see you next time.